was shortly after the storm, and coming up to a site I've known for decades and not recognizing it. It was so disorienting. Trying to get my bearings, trying to understand where I was standing and what was there. So much of the area had been caved out by the river, had just scoured the banks. A whole section of bridge had been moved. I mean, a mammoth-sized portion of bridge that was 100 feet long, 50 feet wide, and moved down the river hundreds of feet. And just to finally then piece together what was missing, what was no longer there. And then the sheer awe of it. It was astounding to see the forces of nature in action. Just unbelievable to see how it transformed the entire landscape into something that was almost recognizable. I was just astounded. We lost our park maintenance operation facility that was down along in Biltmore Village, at the outskirts there, and I was down there when they were retrieving the items. The river came up and inundated the warehouse and all of our equipment and all of our materials and whatnot. And to see the staff salvaging items in mud that is feet deep, and they did it. I mean, it was tough. There was no resources for them. The tools were gone, everything was gone, and yet they were out there and they were salvaging anything they could find in the muck and mire so they could build back the division. They take great pride in maintaining facilities, and they weren't going to be, they weren't going to lose a step. Yeah, that was devastating. I have to say it was gut-wrenching and it was inspiring at the same time. It was really, I really felt for them, and a lot of them had, on top of that personal tragedy of their houses and their family members, it was just astounding to see that they were out there working. I think it's so easy to forget in a couple of months, even when I visited some of the parks initially and seeing it now, it's almost hard to remember exactly how devastated it was. So when I'd walk through a park initially, I would find along the riverfronts the debris up 2.5 stories high, up in the branches hung up, and it would be prolific. It'd be throughout all the branches. I would see a trash receptacle 20-something feet high. Just didn't make sense, and you'd see signs, you'd see all sorts of things, and things that you recognize and some things you didn't. But you don't see that so much now, and that's what's interesting. I would come upon a park in which it's just a mountain of debris. You couldn't even recognize or see the features in the park. And a lot of those are cleared, so I think it'll be hard for some people in time to actually be cognizant of how impactful the storm was. I think, even for me, because even after months, I go back to a park and it's like, wow, how bad was it? I look at the photographs and I say, oh yeah, it was horrific. It was horrific. Trying to capture what the impact of the devastation of the storm was. I would take images, I would send them to people, and when I would forward them, I realized it was just a vignette. It was such a small span of space and time right there, and I wish they could stand and see this incredible, I wouldn't even say panoramic, sometimes it was a 360-degree experience of turning all the way around and just standing on a spot that maybe could be a little precarious even, and saying, wow, this is the middle of an incredibly dangerous and scoured area. It was hard to capture that and convey that to somebody. It just couldn't capture the essence of what really transpired. I would say, if I had to think about some of the best things that surfaced during this event, I think, and it's hard to not be cliched, but I found the depth of relationships with people went deeper. I found that people on the street, at work, and the different interactions that we had, everybody could get to know each other at a level more profound than we ever had before. And I really treasured that. There was a vulnerability that some people showed that I didn't know in the neighborhood. The idea of looking out for each other and caring for another is something you often see in an experience like this. But I think it was actually the depth of vulnerability and sharing was the one that I really treasured and honored and was humbled by. I've really appreciated the different employees I've been working with that immediately grasped the severity of the situation and then already began to look at solutions. How do we bounce back, and how do we restore Asheville in a way that's different, visionary, and inspiring? because I know we can bring this back and reimagine it better than before. The city has experienced times that have been incredibly hard, but every time we've not only bounced back but exceeded everybody's expectations. So each of us are doing everything we can to re-envision our parks so that they're exciting and sustainable and something we never conceived of before.